Hi, and welcome to a brand new section of our course that helps with setting up and getting familiar with the Python programming environment and tools. In the previous section, we took a brief tour of the Python programming language. In this section, we're going to look into various ways to download and install the right version of Python. Then we're going to see how to run Python code. In the last couple of videos of the section, we'll look at how to begin taking advantage of the wide variety of publicly available Python code available on the internet. In this first video of the section, the topic is downloading and installing the Python runtime and standard library. We're going to take a look at the python.org download page, which is, of course, the authoritative place to find Python. We're going to learn a little bit about which versions of Python exist and which we should choose for the course. Then we'll move on to how to set up for this course. Finally, we'll check that everything worked the way we wanted. Before we can really begin working with Python, we need to make sure we've got the language interpreter and libraries properly installed. The first step of that is to decide which version of the language to install. There are currently two common varieties of Python in use. One of them is Python version 2.7, which is the final version of the Python 2 series. The Python community has promised to maintain version 2.7 indefinitely, making it a very stable target for development. The other common version is Python 3, which at the time of this recording is in version 3.5. Python 3 is where the Python community is innovating. The releases are always backward compatible with earlier version 3 releases. But exciting new features are added regularly. During the change to version 3, the language and libraries were changed in subtle ways, as you can see by comparing these two code snippets. On the left is Python 2. On the right, you see equivalent code in Python 3. It's almost the same, but there are differences like placement of parentheses, a few keywords, and slightly different structure to the standard library. You're free to pick whichever version or versions you want for your own projects. But for this course, we'll be using Python version 3. Now that we picked a version, let's install it. If you're a Windows or Mac user, you could download an installer directly from the Python website. Pick the installer appropriate for your computer, download it, and run it. For any platform, we also have the option of downloading the source code, compiling it, and installing Python that way. Unix and Linux users, including Mac users who prefer it, have the option to install Python through their package manager instead. For systems which integrate a package manager, this is probably the best and easiest choice. If we used a package manager, this next part is probably already done. Otherwise, we need to make sure that the Python programs are able to run from the command line on Mac OS X and Unix-like operating systems. All we need to do is add a line to the profile or bash rc file in our home directory. Windows is only slightly more involved. In each of the examples on the screen, pydir is the directory where you installed Python C / Python 35, for example. Once we've got the path environment variable set, we should be good to go. To check that, open a terminal window and type Python, then hit enter. If you don't know how to open a terminal, don't worry. We'll talk about that in more detail in the next video. Also, if you are a Unix user and you do not receive the correct result, it is potentially because the bash rc or profile has not been executed yet. You may need to log out and log back in again. If the Python interactive shell starts up, when we type Python into the terminal, we're good to go. If it doesn't, go back and double check the changes that we made to the path environment variable, because that's the piece that tells the operating system where to look for programs. That's it for setting up. If you're feeling adventurous, You could experiment with the interactive shell that we just started up. Try typing in mathematical expressions and see what happens. In the next video, we'll look more closely at running Python code. Using the command line and the interactive shell,